Welcome back. This is What Everybody is Saying, an ex FBI agent's guide to speed reading people by Joe Navarro, for whom the tells toll. On a fateful date in 1963 in Cleveland, Ohio, 39-year veteran detective Martin McFadden watched two men walk back and forth in front of a store window. They took turns peeking into the shop and then walking away. After multiple passes, the two men huddled at the end of the street, looking over their shoulders as they spoke to a third person. Concerned that the men were casing the business and intending to rob the store, the detective moved in, patted down one of the men, and found a concealed handgun. Detective McFadden arrested the three men, thus thwarting a robbery and averting potential loss of life. Officer McFadden's detailed observations became the basis for a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision, Terry versus Ohio, 1968, 392 U.S. 1. Known to every police officer in the United States. Since 1968, this ruling has allowed police officers to stop and frisk individuals without a warrant when their behaviors telegraph their intention to commit a crime. With this decision, the Supreme Court acknowledged that nonverbal behaviors presage criminality if those behaviors are observed and decoded properly. Terry v. Ohio provided a clear demonstration of the relationship between our thoughts, intentions, and nonverbal behaviors. Most important, I lost my place. Oh, there it is. Most important, this decision provided legal recognition that such a relationship exists and is valid. Navarro and Schaefer, 2003, pages 22 through 24. So the next time someone says to you that nonverbal behavior does not have meaning or is not reliable, remember this case, as it says otherwise and has stood the test of time. Um, there's a lot of debate still about a Terry stop. And depending on what side of the fence that you fall on, pro law enforcement, back the blue no matter who nonsense, or it has no relevance, and it's voodoo science, it's not even science. Yeah, you got it. You both sides have their merits and demerits to it, and they're worthy of concern. I'm a big proponent of Fourth Amendment protections, but at the same time, I walk around, I interact with people, and they are walking billboards in neon in the darkest night, exhibiting, all kinds of tells, signals, intentions, motivations, and all it takes is just a little bit of due diligence, as Mr. Navarro states earlier in the chapter, and that is, you know, you have to practice these things to become proficient, and once you do, it's there. I mean, you have to do things to maintain it, but uh, as I suggested, take up art. You know, take up sketching. Oh, I don't know how to draw or paint. I'm horrible. There's no excuse anymore. There are so many examples of art instruction that can take anybody from an amateur to professional. And this is going to be shaming. When my oldest child became quadriplegic, they moved back into my house because my house had had direct sunlight from the sunrise to sunset. The way that the sun moved across it, you know, that's and where my oldest child was living was, I described it as may as well have been living in a cellar the way that everything was blacked out, curtains closed and everything. Um, and as the quadriplegia became more and more severe, losing all motor control, because originally, my child was able to manipulate objects and eventually lost that ability, from being able to sign signatures and brush teeth and use eating utensils, at least to poke at something, but needing help to raise it to the mouth. Um, New avenues needed to be pursued to encourage a want to exist, to live. And I took my child to what's called a paint and sip, and that is an informal painting gathering, and it's predominantly done by women because they drop 20 to 50 bucks on these things, and they drink their coffee or alcohol or wherever it's hosted at. I don't know if they still happen. This was before the COVID nonsense happened. But within an hour to 2 hours, the painting instructor coaches you how to make the finished result. And whether it's a object or a landscape or whatever, yeah, everybody's painting has the same theme, but it's interpreted differently. But the Sears Tower is still going to be recognized as the Sears Tower. I had another art instructor that said that art is straight lines, angles, and curves. So as we draw something, she had us draw items that were in at the center of the table that she dumped there, of a tennis shoe, eyeglasses, a key lanyard with a key card, um, set of keys, a feather, and we had to draw it, and taking advantage of those three things. Because essentially, if you look at artistry, and I'm not a professional, so I'm not an expert on this, but what I've observed is if you can draw a circle, if you can draw a square, and you can draw a triangle, you can draw. If you can paint those objects, the circle, a square, and a triangle, you can paint. My oldest child painted holding the paintbrush in their mouth, and their ability far surpasses mine. And I'm pretty decent. I'm not great, but I'm pretty decent with painting. So uh, the reason I bring all this up is that incorporating the ability to visually express what you've seen is going to help you be observant, to recognize things. It's going to help you notice details. It's going to help you be able to pick up on cues that people exhibit or tells that they display. And it's going to make a lot more sense. How come a detective with all those years, of nearly, what was it, 40 years? So 4 decades almost? Let's see. Yeah, 39-year veteran. So 40, nearly 4 decades of law enforcement experience. There was another book I read decades ago. It was called What Cops Know, and it was a 200-page book, paperback. You know, you can find it. Go on Amazon, type it in. It's worth the read. All it does is profile one story after another of various law enforcement encounters of, this is how I recognize A, B, and C. Another one is John Douglas, another FBI agent, as Joe Navarro did the behavioral profiling, and he talks about it in his books about how he recognizes things. And the more experience you develop in these fields, in reading somebody's body language, you're going to see that they telegraph a lot of what it is they intend to do. Whether it's nervous energy being exhibited with a tapping foot, or a hand fidgeting with a pencil tapping, or some other display, rapid breathing from being calm, 20 breaths a minute versus 50. Yeah, why are they panting? Did they just get done running a marathon? No, they've been sitting there. Well, to have a heart attack, or are they stressed about something that they did, or what they fear they're going to be accused of? There's things that go into it, and there's things to recognize. So, if I'm not mistaken, this is the conclusion of chapter one, and it took a while to get through it. And hopefully, these examples that I've provided of the element map, his incorporation of the stressed face versus an non-stressed or unstressed face, as well as anecdotes that he provided and I've provided, help you understand the value of this training, and is not as much of a distraction as it is as a motivator to take notes and to develop other techniques to interpret what's going on around you. And go to an art supply store and get one of those posable figures for of a human being, and look at gestures that people make, and then have adjust the figure to that gesture, and then draw the caricature or directly, of that object, of that expression, and then label it. And then it's going to be that autodidactic memory, by having drawn it or painted it, that it's going to be more anchored in your memory than just listening to me or reading this book or anything else. Those are some of the things that I've done that's enhanced my learning. In fact, I went so far as to download all of the METT training videos and such long before I started playing poker, and I would play them at work. I had one of those video display radios that had, the first time I saw it, I thought, man, this is just asking for an accident to happen. And that is the radio sets that have the ability to play videos in their inset. But after I saw it and time went on, I decided to buy my own, and I put all these body language trainings on the video, so that when I was stuck in traffic trying to get off of Capitol Hill area of Seattle onto I-5, I could be sitting there waiting and at least learning body language, because anybody that's driven through, you know, anybody that's come off of Pill Hill, off of Madison to get onto I-5, knows it is a flippin' cluster nightmare at, quitting time. So I wouldn't advise it, because I don't want you getting into an auto accident and having your insurance rates go up, or getting a ticket, or hurting yourself or anybody else, or damaging somebody's property. But I would advise you to, take notes of body language, whether it is live reactions, and compare it and contrast it to actors, as well as to then also take notes of what's being said, take notes of what actions have been done and for what reasons based off of the context, as well as to, as I keep harping on, to take up sketching, drawing, painting. And there's no shame in it. You don't have to show it to anybody. You're doing it for yourself to enhance your ability to identify.